So, hi everyone, I'm Lilia Alexander from Territory 3 Kiwi landing pad Reimagined. We help support Kiwi founders who are going global. As part of this, we do a weekly webinar series with different guests, sometimes founders that have been there, done that, some early stage founders as well, industry experts, and a range of people who we think might have some insight that can kind of help you along your journey as a founder. Today, super excited to be chatting to Jesse Meek, founder of CodeLingo, which is based in Dunedin. So really keen to hear a bit about your background, Jesse, and how did you get started in all of this?
Yeah, sure. Both those questions are intertwined. So I'm a bit of a one-trick pony. All I've really done is software development. So most of my life, all of my professional career. And throughout that career, there was this little niggling problem that chased me wherever I went and wherever I worked. It really came to a head in my last paid job, which was for Canonical, which is a company behind Ubuntu, open source operating system, runs the majority of the cloud on the internet. And in summary, the problem that plagued me was how developers collaborate around code, especially as the code base and the team scales up. I used to think the problem was with me. I used to think I was a really bad developer. And then I thought it was the team I was on. I thought I was an incompetent team. Then I thought it was the company I was in. I thought I was in a dysfunctional company. And the more I dig, the more I found that it's actually industry-wide, that essentially as an industry, we're great at scaling up anything except ourselves. And so I quit my job and I have devoted my professional career to trying to solve that problem in a nutshell.
Awesome. And how long have you been working specifically on CodeLingo?
Yeah, longer than I care to admit. So I founded it back in 2016, and yeah, that's been my life ever since. Yeah.
Awesome. And you've scaled it. I think it was a team of, was it 11 or 13 at the moment?
Yeah, so it's about 10 now. We've got another 4 joining. So yeah, around that mark. Yeah. Cool.
Awesome. And kind of curious, how did you go from no team to that? And what kind of steps along the way did you take to sort of get kick started?
Yeah,
like,
sure.
Did you have something come in at the start, or
yeah,
so funded and
yeah, got you. A very long and winding road, and I think this is quite common if you actually talk to founders. You see all these press releases, and hindsight's 2020, and you say it was all intentional, and you had these very clear phases, and you had your angel round and your pre-seed and your seed and Series A, and it was all all looks like so simple and like it works like clockwork. Reality is very different. So long winding roads. I started as a sole founder. Back in 2016, I took 3 months off work to see if I could find funding to get this off the ground. I navigated the US investment ecosystem, the Australian investment ecosystem, and the New Zealand investment ecosystem. I've got lots of thoughts to share around that. Need to keep in mind this was 2016, and the dynamics of those ecosystems have shifted, but there is still a lot of issues, if I can put it that way, that I think need to be addressed from the founder perspective in these ecosystems. But I don't want to get on my high horse too early about that. But yeah, sorry, your question was, how did I go from just a single developer to the company of having these 14 and 15 people? There's no simple answer to that. The big thing is kind of commitment to your vision. Like you have to have a very deep belief. For me, this is a problem that found me, and I'm obsessed with this problem. I'd be doing this if it was somebody else's company. I'd be doing this if it didn't make any money. I literally started, so I did my day's work, and then I'd be up until 12 or 1 in the morning doing this in my spare time. And you need that kind of resolve in your mission, because you're going to hit times when everything's telling you that you're an idiot. and yeah, so you need some kind of core belief to get you through those phases. Yeah, and then it's interesting, the world is much more supportive than often we wired to realize. I think we can be very negative biased, and especially for me, because I came from the working industry, I'm very used to working inside somebody else's bubble, you know, somebody else's company. They give me a title, they give me a job, they give me a purpose. And it's like, okay, cool, I know if I'm doing a good job or not. And then you come out of that, and initially you think like, no one really wants to hear what you have to say. No one really wants to use your product, you know, like, who are you to to try to solve this problem and all that kind of jazz. But I've just been surprised again and again about just how supportive the world actually is. People giving you a shot, people actually wanting to help you, especially if your core mission is to help a group of people. It's amazing how willing those people are to help you in turn, give you feedback and give you a shot, and iterate and polish the product to the point where it actually does help them.
Good point. Yeah, it is easy to kind of think that, you know, no one out there is like interested or supportive, but definitely there's a lot of supporters out there always.
Yeah, it's an interesting balance, because you need, on the one hand, you know, they talk about Steve Jobs' reality distortion field, where he had such self-belief and such a huge ego that he's just kind of pushed through. That can be a trap, I think. And there's this other dynamic where you can kind of do this internal sales, where you kind of sell to yourself and your team how amazing you are, and you're not actually looking at the scary bits of like what's actually happening in the market, how are people using or not using your product. So there is a balance between getting comfortable with the uncomfortable reality of the world, like, you know, like, oh shit, you know, there's actually a real problem here with our metrics or with our core thesis. We have to actually sit with that and look at that. But then on the other flip side, you're going to have a lot of naysayers. You're going to have a lot of people that are going to freak out. They're going to start your journey and go like, whoa, this is just, there's way less security here than I thought. You're just another human like me. You don't have some, you know, superpower bestowed on you, which is going to give me job security through to the ends. This whole thing could fall over. So you're going to have a lot of people that get freaked out and jump off the boat. And so you have to have this kind of balance within yourself to listen to reality, but also your role as a founder essentially is to inspire. And I think the most authentic way to do that is to genuinely be inspired. And so what I try to do is hold firm to a future vision of how I think the world could be. I think the software industry can, yeah, I think the software industry needs a fundamental change in how we collaborate around codes. And I see that very, very clearly in my mind. So I need to hold towards that. But the path of reality to today to get to that vision is always winding. Yeah, I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, love what you're going on about. In terms of, so you mentioned there, like, it can be hard to retain your team in a sense because there's a bit of uncertainty being in a startup. Maybe wonder, in terms of your business itself, were you making revenue start off the bat, or was there a process where you had to get there, and what kind of, you know, runways were you seeing for the first few years, and yeah, what did that look like?
Yeah, cool. So we're a venture-backed startup. So I come from the software industry, particularly Canonical, mostly open source, and the kind of companies we were rubbing shoulders with were ones that were initially startups, you know, kind of US-based startups. And there's a very particular strategy there where they get funded an enormous amount early on, and the focus is just on traction and growth. So you have opportunities, particularly in the tech sector, to become kind of the king of a category, if you will. So a new opportunity might open up that has never existed before, and there's this little window of opportunity for you to claim, you know, the brand. You know, like there's one YouTube, there's one Google. I'm sure there's other, you know, there's Bing and there's other platforms. But when you think of a particular category of products, there's particular brand names that get associated with them. So that's kind of the big boys strategy game in our tech sector, where you want to kind of go like, hey, there's a huge opportunity here. We need to focus on capturing the market. So it's about capturing mind share and establishing brand recognition, where your brand name becomes synonymous with both the problem, definition of what the problem is, and the solution to solve that. So that's kind of the high level game that you want to shoot for. It's much more normalized in the Valley and that area. It's not normalized in here in New Zealand, particularly, 2016, it wasn't normalized. So this is part of the tension that I found in my journey, where we started. So we're backed by like Reinventure and Rightclick Capital, which are some big Australian VCs, and we always get kind of these calls from US VCs that are interested in tracking where we're going. But there's this tension in New Zealand's culture. We're still very bootstrapped, and a lot of the investment here is, okay, we'll give you enough just to get to the next bit. Like we'll give you enough, and I want to see some revenue and some dividends from this, and then we'll help you grow. And unfortunately, that's at odds with this strategy of capturing the mind share, capturing the opportunity at such a large scale. Yeah. I've forgotten your original question, sorry. Hopefully that was answering
what was my original question? It was around what kind of runway. So I guess what you're saying is you did get back a fair bit at the start, and that kind of kept you going for quite a while.
No, I didn't. So I got just enough. I was trying to play this venture capital, high growth, high mind share capture, strategy with, a shoestring of budget. Like I went from 6-figure salary at Canonical down to like 40K, and I've got 3 kids and a mortgage, and and put enormous stress on my family through all of that, because I'm older, I'm later in life as well. So it was very, very, very hard. The other part of the dynamic was, I know you've got this kind of sheet of questions. I'm jumping all over the place, but probably just the flow of conversation is fine. I think one of the questions was like, what's the hardest part of the journey? And for me, it ties into the story. Being a sole founder, I would never sole found again. And what happened with me was those first employees that joined, I was paying them and they're working for me. I projected co-founder, like a co-founder persona onto them that just wasn't there. And so I had worked with some amazing people, but there was a lot of heartbreak there when they left. They were there for a particular period that made sense to them in their career. They did their bit, and then they moved on. And that was very hard for me because I didn't really have anyone in the hot seat with me. I had like good, even when I had good investors and an amazing board, and we had like introductions to like the CTO of Facebook and like amazing, all these like really like opportunities that you'll die for. But I think in my journey, I've learned to not be so starstruck, even with investors, not be like, we've had Sequoia talk to us and these big VCs, but then I've heard like, this isn't about Sequoia, but just in general, people getting in with these amazing, big, exciting VCs. And then the thing you have to remember is these VCs, it's all a numbers game to them, and it's a strategy game. And often if they're investing in you at early stage, they're investing in the long tail. So they're going to go invest in, like, for example, 10 companies, they're planning on 8 of them to fail, and they want to see the 2 out of those that succeed, and they'll double down on that. So they can get more money, they can't get more time. So these big VCs often actually, if you hit a rough patch, they have to make a judgment call. Do we double down with these guys, or do we let them die?
Yes, good point. Yeah.
Because we only have so much time. So do we let these guys die and actually double down with these guys that are actually going really, really well? So little lessons like that have made me appreciate the people I actually do know, the people that I know won't get scared when the boat hits rough water, that will be there through those periods. And thankfully I have that team now, but it's really, to be honest, it's only been in the past year that I've actually gotten that solid team around me. Yeah, and I think this ties in also to like any tips with investment and stuff like that. It's all relationship building, and on both sides as well. So if you're just going out to get quick money, it's out there, you can get it, but you're tying yourself into a particular journey depending on who you're jumping into bed with, if you will. So it's always good to the other thing is, like I was saying before, that the world is incredibly supportive. I've gotten so much good advice, introductions to potential employees and customers from VCs and investors that have no investment in us whatsoever, because it works on both sides, right? Like they're tracking us and we're tracking them, and we're saying like, are we aligned? Do we see the world in the same way? And you get a chance to talk to their portfolio companies. Go and talk to the founders of the VCs that you're you're considering welcoming into your family, you know, and founders are yeah, pretty much always very honest. Yeah. So I think it's a good tip.
Yeah, good. And back to your point around being a sole founder, I know a lot of VCs these days, they won't even consider a sole founder.
Yeah, I probably contributed to that.
Yeah, so it's definitely,
I've dragged most investors through. Yeah.
Well, it's awesome you've made it this far, and now you do have a really good team around. So that is really cool. But yeah, a note for, I guess, any founders listening is you generally do want to have a co-founder or multiple founders on the team if you are looking to get
Yeah, and just that authenticity and conviction, like a shared conviction in the world that you see that nobody else sees. Because you have to remember that's core to entrepreneurship. You're blazing a trail that doesn't exist. So this tension and friction that you meet from misunderstandings or lack of backing from other people is inherent in the path. If you don't hit that, you're doing something wrong. If you're doing something so obvious, then why hasn't it been done before? If it's so like, follow these 10 steps and hey, you're a billionaire, like it doesn't really work like that, like this, all of this uncertainty, searching through the forest, trying to find product market fits, trying to find that core early adopter, that initial traction. This is bread and butter of the entrepreneurial path. So when you're seeking that core founding group, that it's really important that's an authentic alignment there. That it's really nice if you've actually been through some crap with these people before, or you've seen them go through some crap and see how they handle it. Like, what's the saying that you really see a person's character when they're under pressure. So you want to see that, and you want to make sure that it lines up, that they have some life experience that aligns with the problem space that you're trying to solve. Because you're going to be crying on each other's shoulders, you're going to be scraping it together, like you're going to be as close to these people as you are to your life partners through this journey. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, and I guess it can be tough to find those people. I know you always see posts on Facebook, people looking for co-founders, but it's not as straightforward as it sounds.
That's why relationship building is so important. So through my journey, I have like a wish list of people that I'd love to do a startup with, and everyone does that. So people will always be keeping an eye out on how your progress is going. And even if your startup fails, you as an entrepreneur could succeed. So people, and especially in the investment market, right? Because the VCs are chatting with all of these other founders and potential kind of competitors with what you're doing. So, I mean, one thing is like I'm very happy with where we are now, and there's it's more of a personal commitment I made to myself that I always said I would go down with the ship. Like there's times where I've seen CodeLingo, I thought it was going to go under. It's like, okay, this is it, this is the end. And I stayed right into that last day, and then somehow it turns a corner, and then we're in a better spot. But you do need to make these judgment calls. Do you wind this up? This startup, and if it's not a wind up, it's like a pivot thing. Like you need to, this is what I was talking about, reality, like let reality punch you in the face and really feel that pain and pivot where you need to, because you never know what's around the corner. And be good at being you, because that's the one thing that is in your control, and there's so much that's not in your control in this journey. For example, the whole global market has just shifted, and so all of our conversations with investors right now has shifted. We don't have direct control over that, but we do have control over how we respond to that and navigate this new market. And even if, for example, just the world absolutely goes to shit in the next 6 or 12 months, and it's just like, no, we're all going under, and CodeLingo goes under. Still, in how we conduct ourselves and how we navigate this process, that can be a success. And how we tie it up, how honorable are you to all of the relations that you've built with investors and customers and teammates. All of that lasts and continues on. Yeah, and then so the reason I'm saying this in the context of finding a co-founder, you're always raising money, you're always hiring teammates, you're always looking for co-founders, just in how you are, right? Like you let the world know who you are and what you're trying to do, and listen to the world when that comes back. Yeah.
Awesome. Just had a note there from Ruben. Oh, he's just jumping off but saying hi from San Francisco. Awesome. Thanks for tuning in, Ruben. What part of your journey has gone surprisingly well?
Yeah, so I suppose this is kind of what I was saying before, is that the world is surprisingly supportive and there's an enormous amount of opportunities out there. I was listening to Naval, is that how you pronounce his name? He's like a pretty famous podcaster and a guy that tweets, and he was saying that how kind of evolutionarily, we're hardwired to, you know, be scared of the tiger in the bush, and we're very hardwired to kind of be very fearful of our environment, and that's a bit of a disservice in the modern world, where we actually have an abundance of opportunities in the environment around us, but we still kind of have a negative bias and a you know, we want to be safe and secure and better the devil you know, and all that kind of jazz. So every time I've gone out of my comfort zone and, you know, knocked on a door, or, you know, done a talk like this, for example, you know, I'm pretty much an introvert, I just like to say behind my keyboard, surprising things come out of it. And so I think that's the thing that has gone surprisingly well. And it's humbling. It's humbling to remind myself that I don't know much about the world that I operate in. I know my own life experience, and I know the people I've had interactions with, and, you know, how I consume this mental model of the world that we have through like Twitter and blog posts and podcasts and what have you. But that's not the world. You know, this is just my mental model of the world. And so whenever I kind of step beyond, put myself out there, I'm always surprised about who's on the other side. So yeah,
in our own little bubbles of
yeah. It's like that cliche that growth happens in when you step out of your comfort zone. I know that's a very vague answer, but I mean, the fact that I'm here today and I have the amazing team that I have around me, you know, I kind of pinch myself going like, I should have been dead like several years ago, you know, like, okay, I'll keep going.
always worth keeping going.
To
your point around pivoting, I think when bad things do happen in the world, or when bad things happen in terms of what you're doing for your startup, the ones that survive are the ones that can see the new opportunities and are willing to change. And, you know, you can't just stick with what you've always done. You have to be open to doing something new and finding like, where is the need, and like what can you solve for someone if that problem has changed now, or it's kind of being willing to change.
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite a humbling path, because I think when you first start, it takes a lot of ego to first start. You know, you kind of step out of the job and you think you have the ability to create this thing that no one else has created and change the world, and then you get beaten around, and then you realize like, oh yep, you know, my initial vision either didn't work, or I couldn't execute it in time, or couldn't get it to fit. But then in that process, hopefully you've had enough touch points with enough other people to realize like, oh, but there are genuine problems out there, and there are genuine pain points that you can help with. And then, or at least in my case, that becomes the motivation that you actually, I'm actually serving a whole sector of society. And even those terms are quite abstract, sector of societies. Like, I have particular people, names and companies and teams that we're helping, and they're excited, you know, and then that's kind of what drives you, and it becomes, you kind of become a lightning rod for however you want to frame it, even a movement or an idea or a new way of doing things. And it's really, all these people around you actually do the work of making it happen. But for that to happen, again, there's that balance thing where you have to be, one, strong enough to hold to the vision, but two, humble enough to get out of the way, and let these, you know, really listen to people and help these people build the solution with you.
Yeah, totally. And if someone else can do it, and your team can do something better than you can, then to let them do it and be able to let go of, you know, your need to control everything, I guess, is a lot of founders.
Absolutely. I was talking to another founder the other day, and he was talking about his team. They've just gone through a rough patch, and they've kind of had to shrink down to a core team. But he said that everyone on that team would keep building their products, even if he's the sole founder now. If he was out of the picture, they would keep building the product. So they're 100% in love and aligned with it. And he said that's a bit scary, it's a bit intimidating, because he has to earn his value on the team, which I think is that's a good way. That's an amazing culture to have.
That's good. They're passionate about it as well.
And that's because there can be some tension as a founder. No one's going to care about it as much as you do. And this is the tension that I had to navigate with projecting kind of co-founder personas onto early adopters. Sorry, not early adopters, sorry, to early employees. And so they can be impassioned and really love the job and like, yeah, like I get so much meaning out of this job and this is such a great opportunity for me professionally and contributing to the world and all that kind of jazz. But when push comes to shove, they have different incentives and they are on a different journey to you as a founder. So it's an interesting one, how to inspire a team to, you know, to build this new worldview while keeping in mind that they are differently aligned. Anyway, I'm just thinking out loud. This is the kind of stuff I'm thinking through right now myself. In the company,
it's more like it's just for them. It might just be like their role is just a short part of their journey, whereas for you, it's your whole. You know, it's your life at the time.
Yeah, and I think you need to be honest about that, because otherwise, if you're not, you can kind of build resentment. So, which I think I did in the early days, where I misunderstood, like, oh, hang on, like you've got a family and a mortgage, and you know you need to think about your salary, and you need to think about your personal career. Thank you so much for choosing us. Thanks for signing in for 2 years and helping us get to this next phase. Awesome, you know, and just be really happy about that. But I think it's important. Be important to be honest about that, and then have like a really good, exciting, engaged relationship, rather than having some resentment or misunderstanding where you want them to do more, or you want them to not even do more. It's just want them to, I don't know, be in the hot seat with you or something like that.
Yeah. In that case, that is where you need more of a co-founder role. So
100%.
In terms, okay, going back to CodeLingo. I mean, personally, I don't code, so I don't know too much of the techie side of things. Can you run through, because I know that there might be some techie people listening,
totally.
more about what exactly it does, what it solves? Because I know you've got a few different products that you've got on offer, and you're working on a new one at the moment. If you want to go a bit into,
Am I able to share my screen?
Should be able to.
Access.
See if I can. Okay, not allowed. Okay, I can't see a button for it unless it is down here.
I can give you a hand wavy demo if we can share. I can actually show you the product.
Like, I think it.
Is there like a little suit? There should be a little like shield security button down the bottom.
Yeah, where it says shared screen and it says like multiple participants can share simultaneously. Oh
no, you've done it. Sorry. It's
okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll just give you, because we have several products, I'm going to give you a really quick rundown of the high level problem we're solving, and then how we've chopped that up into 3 products. So as I said before, used to think this problem started with just me as a bad developer on a team. Then I thought it was the team, then the company, then I thought it was industry-wide. I'm not alone in thinking that. So Stripe came out with a report that estimated technical debt, which is a fancy word for crap code, to cost global GDP $3 trillion a year. Coding Sans has come out with an annual report that has found that the leading cause of technical debt to be poor knowledge sharing. And the #1 self-reported problem from engineers, when you ask them what is the biggest problem that you find developing software in a team, is poor knowledge sharing. So as I said before, the easiest way to think about this is, as developers, we're good at scaling up anything except ourselves. So through the journey, we've chatted to a whole bunch of teams, and regardless of the shape and size of those teams and the companies they work for, there's this one theme that has come out through those interviews. So I lead the interview with, what is the most painful problem that you experience developing software in a team? The theme usually emerges as a breakdown between the thinking around the code and the writing of the code. So the thinking around the code is everything from who are we, why are we here, what are we building, who are we building for, what's important to them, you know, is it security, speed, configurability, through to architectural patterns and just you know, processes of how you write code in a team. All of that stuff usually happens in information systems away from the code base. So it's your Confluences and your Jiras and your Trellos, all that kind of jazz. And it gets formulated in meetings like this, where we call up and we smile and we nod our heads and we thumbs up and, yep, totally understand, we're totally on the same page. It's not until we actually get to the writing of the code that we realize that we're not on the same page, that there's some fundamental misunderstandings. The industry standard way to get us back on the same page is through a thing called pull requests. So pull requests, take GitHub, for example. GitHub will have your main version of code in your repository up there. And then what you do is you fork that code, you create a branch and you create your changes, and then you request those changes to be pulled back into that repository. At that point, you have the delta between the existing code and the changes that you're asking to come in. That delta then gets reviewed by the rest of your team. So they can come in and so all of the eyes of the team can look at that code and tell you what you need to change, or say, okay, it's good to merge in. It's the richest point of collaboration in the SDLC, the software development lifecycle. It's usually the point where bugs get caught, or where you realize that you've got technical debt. For example, I could come in and say like, hey, I don't like how you coded this thing, but I see why you had to do it that way because we've got this dodgy pattern here. Oh, we have to kind of fix this deeper problem. Problem with all of this is it happens too late in the development lifecycle. So hours, if not days, can be lost to writing the wrong type of code before it gets picked up in the pull request process. I'm not alone in complaining about this. So this is just a handful of tweets from leading devs in leading companies. One way or another complaining about the negative effect of PRs on both the culture and velocity of the team. To be clear, I'm not saying that we'll get rid of pull requests. They've been around for ages and they'll continue to be around for ages. What I am saying is that they're better suited as a CI run, so continuous integration run, a largely automated run where you have your linters and your bots, making sure that no code through ignorance or no malicious code through ignorance or intent gets into your main repo. All of that human collaboration that's getting shoehorned right at the end of the process needs to be shifted left. Happen earlier in the development lifecycle and part of the actual flow of coding. And the solution. So this is what we live to. Solve. Sorry, my partner just dropped in. Is that all okay? Oh no! Oh my God. Sorry, I just heard my partner just popped in, and our dog has had a stomach bug these past few days, and she's just shat the car. So that will be me after this. As I say, this is the path of the founder, right? This is our full-time job, is just to deal with shit metaphorically, or as today will be literal. Okay, I'll continue this demo and finish this call and then get back to the reality. Okay. That's completely thrown me. So what we exist to solve is essentially this people problem around code. What you'll see in a lot of other tech startups is very technical solutions. They'll be sporting like a new dashboard so they can see like how many commits your developers are submitting, all this kind of jazz. We take a very different approach. We want to start with the development team. So initially what we're focusing on is how can we make developers collaborate better around code while they're staying in flow, rather than treating them like a black box. And a lot of these tools that you say, especially enterprise tools, are aimed at like managers and up that are frustrated that their development team keeps missing deadlines, and they're kind of wanting, how can I tighten the screws on this development team to make sure that they actually hit these deadlines. I'm a developer first, and I'm starting from the inside out. So I'm like, hey, how can we actually reduce the friction of developments between developers, and then from there grow out. The world that I see us moving towards is one of social coding. So you remember that the knowledge systems, the current knowledge systems I'm talking about, away from the code base. So you have this, part of the problem, there's this thing called doc rot. So you have all of your best practices written up in your Confluence, for example, and then you actually have the code, and the code's moving very quickly. Now you have two things to maintain: the knowledge about how best to work on this repo and all the underlying design thinking, and then the actual code. And what usually happens is that there's this layer of tacit knowledge that exists between developers, where it's quick Slack messages, or how do I actually do this? It's usually in review comments and stuff like that, versus how are we meant to do this? And so there's a big gulf between the information systems and the reality on the ground. What I'm very interested in is moving towards a world of social coding, where number one, we make it easier for developers to collaborate on code as they scale up. what if you go and chat to lead developers that are part of a very large team, more often than not, you'll find that they will miss the early days. They'll miss working on a small team where it's just like 3 or 4 people. They can move really fast, and there's this kind of natural knowledge where they all understand what they're doing and how they should do it. And that kind of calcifies as the systems grow up, and then you get these large knowledge systems and processes that just kind of impersonalize everything and slow the whole process down. And so I'm really interested to see if we can move to a world of social coding, where number one, you make collaboration around code smooth and easy so you can stay in the flow. But number two, could you have an emergent layer of knowledge that comes out of just the activity of coding and collaborating with other developers? Okay, so with that philosophical hand-wavy pretext, we'll jump into our products. So we've got the 3 products, CodeLink, CodeNote, and CodeRule. So we'll just start with CodeLink. I'll just walk through the problems that I'm aware of time as well. So I might just do CodeLink. If anyone's interested, schedule a call with me and we can jump into CodeNote, CodeRule. So let's just work through the problem of CodeLink. CodeLink aims to solve this very common problem. So imagine that you are on a development team, your colleague is Sue. Sue is offline and in another time zone. So they're going to be talking to her online. You want to chat to Sue about a bit of code. In this scenario, your name is Jesse and you're chatting to her on Slack. Hey Sue, I'm updating the runner func. Can you check the command calls? Sorry, which one? In Go Oracle PY. Wait, which repo are you in? I can't find the file. Okay, I'll find it on GitHub. So wait for me to go and find it on GitHub. Got it. What have you changed the commands to? Hang on, I'll make a gist. Wait for me to go and make a gist, show the changes I've made. Does it make sense to use the run command, or should your runner class handle this? Where are you calling right running? Can you create a whip PR so I can see the rest of your code? And you're 5-10 minutes in, and you're just waiting to kind of establish all of that context about the bit of code, the right commit, files, lines, repo, before you can actually ask that question. Let's replay this with CodeLink. I'm updating the run func. Can you check the command calls? Sorry, which one? Send through the CodeLink. Sweet. I see how you've got it all hanging together. I left my comments in there. Oh, did you see Dan's comment on your code note? Must have been pinged because your notebook's overlapped. His code is replacing all that. Sweet. Well, that just saved me a day's work. Cool. So let's go and actually make one of these so we can see how that works in practice. So I've got VS Code. I'll just get Zoom window out of the way.
On it.
Oh my God. Now Siri's talking to me. This as well. Cool. Okay, so this is a demo repo. We've got a TypeScript file in here. We've installed CodeLink completely free. You don't even need to log in to use it. And let's say we're popping on here, and I just want to have a quick chat with somebody about this bit of code. So just select the codes. Once the extension's installed, we click get link. And that's it. So just created a link to this to our to that bit of code. What I can do here is share this in Slack, and it will unfurl in Slack for us. So I'll show the snippet of code, and let me do this cool stuff here. The reason this first time is, all right, anyway, yeah. So here's the code. So we can see here, this is the file name and the lines, and then there's a simple code, so we can chat in Slack or wherever you like. Then what we can do is open it in GitHub. It will go and show you the lines of code on GitHub, if it's Bitbucket or GitLab, or do the same there. Or we can open it directly in VS Code. So if we click on this, look, mum, no hands, it opens up the editor, finds the file, and highlights the lines of code for you. So straight away, it's doing all of that for you. If you've never used CodeLink, and if you don't have this code locally on your machine, it's actually going to go and do it all automatically for you. So I could send, if anyone's a developer on here, I wonder where I can pop this in. Oh, anyway, I could just pop this in the chat, and you could click on it. Click open VS Code, that'll open it up or prompt you to install the CodeLink extension. Then it'll prompt you to actually download this repository from GitHub. connect and then go and highlight the lines of code. So from 0 to full context, being able to chat is very quick and smooth. Once you want to go a bit deeper into this, instead of just quick chats, you want to get a bit more in depth with your collaboration, then it goes over to notebooks. Notebooks is being renamed to code note. So that same little snippet that we started with here is now in a notebook. So notebook is essentially, it's just like, it's just a Word doc. So you can collaborate in real time with your colleagues. It's got basic markdown support, but then you can put these cool little blocks in here that integrate all the way from the editor through to the pull request. And I'll just show you this one here that's been automatically added for us from our initial code link. We want to chat, let's say we want to have there's a little code smell in here where you can see here, this is a TypeScript function. We're passing in a naked boolean. We don't really like naked booleans being passed in because it's not clear what they stand for. So let's just highlight this guy here. Now, number one, who do I talk to on the team about this? So I just want to have a chat with somebody about this. How can we do better here? If we roll over this little icon, we can see that Lachlan was the last one to edit this code. We click on that. We can actually start a chat with him here. Hey, I'm not sure about this naked bool. It's not clear what it stands for. Cool, so very quickly, we've been able to pull that full context together. He'll get pinged on Slack that he's been mentioned in this chat. He can go and click on this, and you can see here, just like it's highlighted for me, it will highlight for him, so he can get the full context of the area that we're talking about. And then I can come in here and add in anyone else on the team to join in on the chat. Mm-hmm. Anyway, he's come back here and he's suggested that we optionalize this value. So this isn't canned, this is real. He's on Slack right now. I'm not sure what he means by optionalize. So what do you mean? So what he can do now is actually edit this little snippet. So he's going to use this little icon up here to edit this little snippet and show me what he means in this code. Let's close this. Yeah, cool. So he's done it here. So this has changed the snippet into a diff, and you can see here what he's suggested is that we wrap the boolean in an options object and we call the options out at the core site. So now I have full context. I've gotten guidance from my lead developer. I've been unblocked, and I can go in and make those changes in my code. In the case that his change applies directly, I can actually just go and click apply patch. Finds the file, highlights the code, and if we see here, it actually applies the change to my code that he's suggested. In here, so you can see here the options object is around the boolean and the options object has been called out. Okay, that's a whirlwind tour. I'll stop there, but just taking a snap, stepping back and considering what you've just seen, a lot of these collaboration points right now are all kind of packed into the pull request process and, up on GitHub, particularly this one here. So if you wanted to do the equivalent of that today, you'd have to create a whip PR and make a comment up on GitHub and suggest change and pull that down. What we're aiming to do essentially is identify all the points of collaboration, like the atomic parts of collaboration that are happening in the pull request workflow, break those apart and essentially create blocks for each one, which allows developers and development teams to create their own workflows of collaboration. The world I'd love to see is where we start to open source these blocks and actually start to develop a community around this, where devs out there can start to build their own functionality into this and then compose these. What's really nice about this is it's about bringing the thinking closer to the code. You have a full space here where you can start to really, this is a full Word document, so you can really lay out design specs, technical specs. Very quickly, you can pull together. So this was actually requested from Dave at Atlassian, one of our users. So he's principal engineer at Atlassian. What he wanted to do was suck up a whole bunch of changes in his repository, uncommitted changes, and automatically create a notebook from that. And this is what this demo shows. And when you see this, you'll see it resembles like a whip PR. So very quickly, he can reference a whole chunk of several repositories if he wished, and get across quite complex ideas. And the nice thing about this is once you get alignment on the thinking, you can hand this over to a developer and it becomes an interactive tutorial where they click on each one of those blocks. It loads up the actual code for them, and they can start actually actioning the designs and the thoughts that you've reached as a team. And I'll stop there because I could talk about this until the
Cool.
cows come home.
Yeah, I think you've actually done a good job at it. Like I can actually understand it. So
Cool.
it's great. We had a comment from Jeremy saying this is awesome. So yeah.
Yay. Okay, Jeremy, get in touch. come test it out and give us feedback.
Yeah. So in terms of the business side for your customers, do you charge a subscription fee? Do you charge a one-off? What kind of customers are you targeting?
Yeah, sure.
What does that look like? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really great question. So CodeLink is designed to be free forever. So it's a freemium layer. And as I was saying before, this whole journey of kind of being stuck in my own ego and my own thesis of what the market needs and building, and then realizing it doesn't fit. We're in a process now of building with the community, building with the market. So we've got a series of early adopters and we're starting with CodeLink, and then we're adding features and values as they're being requested. For example, 2 that are coming up is 1, being able to target particular branches. So maybe you want to grab some code on your branch, but then pass it over to someone else on, say, main branch. The other one is, and I forgot to show this, when you go from the link, what naturally happens is a whole bunch of these links start to pop up and becomes, so this is what we're calling a link list. And so you essentially have a link log of all of these conversations that are happening around the code. And then you want to basically introspect not only what conversations are currently happening around the code, but how did that code come to be in the first place? So you want to surface up using things like git annotate and going through finding the commit of those lines, cross-referencing those with the pull requests that introduce them to the repository. You can actually extract out what was the developer trying to do when they introduced these lines of code, who was part of the conversation, who contributed to that PR, who signed it off. So we want to get a little summary around that. So very quickly you can see not only who's currently talking about this area of the code, but what was the initial thinking around the code that led this to be. So all of those kind of things are coming from working with our early adopters, and the core of it will be free, but you can start to see there's certain points of value that's like, well, I think this should be paid for because it's kind of a step up. So, but what we're trying to do is find natural payment gateways, like ones that make sense, because we want to earn the respect of our users. And how we do that is giving as much value with asking as little as possible, and making sure that you get value out of this and build. So we build our reputation and trust. And then from there, naturally provide higher value with higher higher features. So CodeRule, for example, paid for. Notebooks was free. You could probably sneak in now if you want to. We're going to grandfather people that are using it for free now, but I think it's the real freemium one we're doubling down on is CodeLink. And then when you get into notebooks, there'll probably be some kind of cap on that. There'll probably be like a certain quota of free notebooks you can use, and then paid on top of that. But yeah, so that's a roundabout way of saying that we are focused on, like I was circling all the way back, this is about mind share and capturing the market, and our CodeLink is the strategy for that.
Yeah, awesome. Just a quick note for people watching at the moment, we've got 10 minutes left. So if you have any questions, now is the time to chuck those in the Q&A box or the chat, and I'll keep an eye on those for us to answer. In terms of your space, are there other startups, companies doing similar things, competitors?
Yeah. They're all pretty new, but they are there. It's frustrating because they're all getting big backing from overseas, and but it's a good sign, right? No one's doing exactly what we're doing, and I believe we have a real opportunity. But again, this is why it's just all about execution at this stage. Like somebody is going to do this, and if it's not us, it's somebody else. And you're starting to see that. And there's So actually, I mentioned that we've got a really strong team around us. My new business partner, Trevor McIntyre, he's got an amazing track record, CEO of several successful companies, and he's had a good success track. He's really been looking at the markets, and the time is right for this. In many ways, I kind of started too early because I was such an insider into the industry. I had all the developers complaining about this, but even for example, technical debt. Technical debt was like this kind of nerdy term that all of the developers whinged about like a decade ago, but you would never see it as a line item on a large company for them to consider. But now that's becoming much more mainstream, just the concept of technical debt. There's a phrase that software is eating the world. I believe technical debt is eating software. A very quick anecdote, a customer very early on in our journey, they underpinned 50% of 911 systems across America. Their system went down for 6 hours because this is all your first responders. So, you know, like your police, your fire, your ambulance, they got charged tens of millions of dollars because they can be up for manslaughter if they're shown to not follow the proper processes. Again, and you're just starting to see these security breaches, and you know, software is underpinning the modern world's infrastructure. So these more archaic, subtle problems are starting to surface up. I often think about it as an analogy almost to like the 2008 financial crisis, where you heard all of these like mortgage bonds just sitting under the surface. No one really understood, but they were kind of festering away, and then suddenly like crack. Anyone that works in the software industry knows how much the lights are kept on by like chewing gum and sticking tape. Like it is horrendous. Like even these things, like I've been to so many big enterprise companies that are using archaic systems, spaghetti code. They have divisions. This is quite common, where you have a legacy team division. So this is like a whole group of developers devoted just to technical debt and managing technical debt. So it's they can't ignore it. We have to get better. And I believe the problem isn't by the time you're looking at technical debt and the code, it's too late. Like how did the code get to that state? So I'm all about shifting it left and saying like, actually, code at any point is a snapshot in time of a process. Like I could give you a perfect code base today, and in the wrong hands with the wrong processes, in 6 months' time, it's going to be full of technical debt and spaghetti code. So my thesis on this is it's about the human collaboration piece. Getting those teams to actually, and this is what's really interesting, is I don't believe there's any one right way. So you see a lot of these solutions out there. There's these kind of linters as a service. Linters are just like bots which automatically check code. That can only get you so far. My thesis is that your team knows the best way to code your code base. The problem is a scalability problem. So if you take, for example, like sports teams as an analogy, imagine if you had one football team, but 2 coaches. Each coach would have a separate strategy. Both are winning strategies. They've been proven to win in the past, but imagine the 2 of them fighting about that strategy in that one team. It just wouldn't work. And that's the core of the problem that I'm trying to solve, is how can you get that alignment of strategy and execution, tactics and strategy in a fast-moving development team that's growing quickly.
Yeah, cool. Sort of simplifies the process, saves people a whole lot of time, and helps everything, or the code
helps everything. Yeah. Just makes the world a better place. You know,
it sounds like you're definitely in a very exciting space, and I love it. You're working on a new product. Was it that you've just done another capital raise, or you're in process of that? Because you mentioned you've got 4 new people coming.
Yeah. So just in process. Yep, absolutely. Trevor's kind of handling all of that for us. Obviously, if you're interested, reach out and I'll pass you on to Trevor. But yeah.
What kind of people are you looking for?
Gosh, that's such a Trevor question. What can I and can't I say about this round?
That's cool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's I suppose that's a whole discussion itself. I might just pause that one and wait for Trevor to handle that.
Yeah, cool. So one thing I wanted to touch on was so you're based in Dunedin.
Right.
So we don't have too many startups. I mean, we've got a few startups out of Dunedin. But how do you find, in terms of, you know, growing your startup there, what's the ecosystem like? Is it quite collaborative with other founders?
Yeah. So I'm friends with Jim Sporer. Jim is he was head of AI at IBM, and he actually visited Dunedin a few years ago. He's based over in the Valley, and he's been there since he was a boy. And he says that Dunedin reminds him of Silicon Valley in the early days. It has all of the key elements for it just to go off. So we've got a university with good talent coming out of there. We're starting to get a good investor ecosystem. So we've had a few people exit recently, you know, like Ryan Baker from Timely, and we've got a few others, you know, Nigel Banford and now I've started names and need to name them all. I'll stop here, but there's a good core collection of investors here that can really start to get this environment humming. And we've got a good set of startups coming through here as well. I do think there is still a bit of a cultural battle in terms of expectations around startups. especially at the angel level, and I had to navigate that myself, where you come in these kind of ridiculous offers where, you know, my first offer, somebody wanted 50% of the company for like 30K and was wanting, you know, to drive it towards getting dividends in the following year or something like that. It's just a completely different model to what we're trying to do and how we're trying to play. That was 2016, but still, I think there's a bit of this kind of bootstrapping culture, and just realizing it's a risk and reward game. It's like, well, what level do you want to play at? Like, it's totally fine if you don't want to put down a huge amount of capital for a huge risk. That's fine. That you play in a different bracket. But if you want a huge reward, you've got to front up and go for it. Like, I've devoted my life to it. We're attracting amazing talents. We are trying to, you know, run against like the top in the world in what we're trying to do. So there needs to be a bit more audaciousness around that. You know, they talk about the American culture where they're very comfortable blowing their own trumpet and like, that's awesome, go for it. And the Kiwi culture is very much more kind of the tall poppy. Who are you to think you can do this? And, you know, kind of downplaying, you know, your ability and your ambitions and all that kind of jazz. But that's more of a cultural thing. I think the core elements in Dunedin are very exciting. It just takes the right person. We need to get the right person, for example, in council here, the right kind of core leaders to really ignite the fire. But all of the dry wood is here, I believe.
Yeah, awesome, cool. Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping we might be planning a visit down there some point in November. So
awesome. Yeah, please reach out.
Got some dates locked in, because that'd be cool to kind of get, you know, a group.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, cool.
Awesome. Okay, so we're coming to the end of the time now, but it has been really amazing to hear your story. Interesting that, you know, to chat a bit on the VC environment at the start there as well, and a bit more in depth on the techie side of what CodeLingo does. Yep. And so if anyone is interested, they can reach out to you if they're looking for a demo. Yep. Or if they're potentially looking for a role, you know, you might have some roles up in the near future.
Yeah, we're growing fast. Like I say, we've got 4 new people coming in. We're closing this round, or we're looking to close this round in the next probably 2 months. Expanding from there. This is a fast game. So yeah. Please reach out if you want to come and join in some way. It'd be awesome.
Cool, awesome. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. This webinar has been recorded, so I'll be tracking this up on our site. Hopefully within a couple of hours or so. So if you know anyone that would love to watch afterwards, we'll be able to share it around. But yeah, big thank you to Jesse for, you know, coming on and sharing your story and your insights.
Awesome.
Quite a few things. It's been really interesting to listen to your
Cheers.
insight.
I'm off to clean a car full of dog poop now. Back to reality. Thanks for the indulgence.
Gosh, cool. Thanks everyone. We'll see you on the next one.
Cheers. See ya. Bye.